are so pretty, 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 pretty. Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Females made you just to trick me, trick me, trick me, trick me. 'Cause baby girl, you are so easily pretty. The only reason that I can do tonight is 'cause I know you were invited. The only reason that this dress is skin tight is 'cause I thought that you would like it. I'm only.
This is Jessica Javens Talk, and my name is Jessica Javens, Season 3. If this is the first time that you're tuning in, you need to make sure you check out Season 1 and 2. And a little bit about me, I was raised and born in Brazil and came to the United States of America with a dream of possibilities. And a lot has happened since then. I got married, I adopted 4 beautiful children, I went to corporate world, climbed the ladder, became a leader, and then I also went through the health downhill of trying to do it all. And now, with me being able to find a strategy that truly worked for me, where I was able to work my mind and my body, my mission now is to help people to do the same, their best version yet, especially executive moms, middle-aged women who are really struggling trying to take care of everything. So welcome to Jessica Javens Talk. I'm sure you're going to find an episode that you're going to absolutely identify yourself with from the previous seasons, or maybe the next one, or even today with our guest. And I have today somebody who is very special to me. We've been starting to work together, and it's been an amazing journey of discovery. And her work is so unique and so beautiful that you need to know and learn about. Her name is Dr. Blythe Cleverly, and she is a brain and behavior strategist, an author, a thought leader. She is the thinker's advocate, leading the thinker's revolution, driven for impactful deep thinkers. And also she helps them to stop with the hamster wheel. For 15 plus years, she's helped high capacity individuals master their minds and lead with clarity. And one of her powerful ideas is being the master of your own mind. Doctor, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jessica. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I heard that you're tuning in from Mexico, right?
I am currently, yes. So I'm normally located outside of Vancouver, BC, but sometimes in the winter months, you'll find me in Mazatlan.
Wonderful. I can't wait to go back to Mexico. There's so many other places that I haven't met. So thank you for tuning in and being here with us today. It's such a privilege. So let's start. There's a few things that we talked about right before the show that are absolutely amazing. And I want the listeners to have these aha moments that you gave me. You call yourself the thinker advocate. Why
Yes.
did you choose that title?
You know, thinkers, they need to have somebody who's an advocate for them. This brain or this neurotype has been misunderstood and mislabeled. Deep thinking is not necessarily encouraged in our society. And I think that the people who are the deep thinkers, they have extraordinary gifts and they have real challenges, and they need that language, that advocacy, that leadership, that community in order to step forward into who they really are.
Yes. And you brought so much light from my understanding in this that I didn't have, and it was so amazing to learn. So you have a name for this type of brain that you work with. So what do you call it?
So I call it the metacognitive neurotype, or MCN for short.
Wow. Okay. That sounds a little complicated for most of us. Is that a diagnosis?
It is not a diagnosis. So it's a neurotype. It's a wiring pattern. So metacognitive, you're thinking, these are people who think about thinking. They are deep thinkers. And it describes how somebody thinks regarding their thinking process and how they experience life, how they're perhaps a bit more intense. A lot of these people are neuro-intense, what I call neuro-intense. That doesn't mean that they've had a formal diagnosis, although a lot of people will kind of self-diagnose or think that maybe there's a possibility that they could be ADD or OCD or a bit on the spectrum. But in general, they process deeper, they feel things and think things more than other people do, right? So they have a sensitivity to their external world and to their internal world that's unique to them. They don't necessarily need a diagnosis in order to relate to this cognitive style.
Wow. You said that so clearly. So for somebody who's not part of that group, I'm thinking they know they're probably part of that group, but for somebody who's not, how can I tell? Like if I'm observing people, can I tell that somebody has that neural pathway, or how would I know?
You'll know in how they relate to the world and how they relate to themselves. And I find that a lot of people who have this are actually men who are highly driven in business, but they have a partner
Mm.
who doesn't quite understand how they function, and they'll be described maybe as, too blunt or cold or distant or too analytical, like overthinking. They get on this hamster wheel with
Uh-huh.
themselves. They can be highly successful in one area, but the social skills may be lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Or for somebody who says, "Oh, I'm in analysis paralysis again, and I can't
Oh.
sleep because I can't stop my brain." Right? So that's maybe how you identify somebody.
Mm-hmm. This is very important for me and probably a lot of our listeners, because raising many children, especially being a mom, you're constantly looking and observing and trying to find the best ways to guide your children through it, right? And soon this will bring me to another question that has to do with you personally. But before we go there, I like to ask you, one of the things that we introduced you as is being part of the Thinkers Revolution.
Right.
What is the Thinkers Revolution, Doctor?
Well, that is something that I coined, and it's basically people waking up and realizing that they have this specific neurotype. Instead of suppressing it, they learn how to embrace it and its gifts and its challenge, and they learn how to communicate with other people that don't have that neurotype. Like I consider myself a translator between brain types. If you've got that, that highly trained engineering brain, and then you're trying to, partner with somebody who's more emotional and heart centered, you don't know how to do that, right? So
Yeah.
the revolution is about kind of like the aha moment of, I own this mind. I need to become more self-led and to learn how to translate, not only for myself, but for the other people around me that are trying to understand me. And then who are the others like me? Where's my community?
Wow, that's beautiful. So would you say that that part right there is beneficial in relationships between maybe family members or friends, once that awareness become part of both of them, right? Both sides, the one who is and the one who isn't.
It's huge. It's huge. So
Wow.
when I work with somebody who's maybe like highly successful in business, quite often their relationships at home are failing, or they don't know how to relate to
Mm.
people at work even, right? And there's so much misunderstanding between how they see the world and how other people see it, and why they're communicating the way they are, and they don't understand what the rules are of
Wow.
communication because they haven't been taught. Like they're really, really good at their job or at a focus, but everything else, it's like, the wives, for example, of these men will say to me, I feel like I'm never heard. I'm talking to a brick wall.
Mm.
Or he doesn't care. And it's actually not true that he doesn't care. It's that he can't receive that because you're speaking a different language. And so sometimes these are also women. Like I have this neurotype, so sometimes we're also women, but I see far and large most of the people that come to me, it's the men, but it's the women in their lives that are helped the most. I think in some ways, because they get their partner that they want by understanding how to talk to them.
Wow. So you're saying it is possible then, of course, if they're probably, I don't know, maybe you said the women do the more of the work because they're the ones who have to understand their partner, right? So it is possible for them to have that understanding and
Mhm.
for their relationship to improve then once they have that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that the women have to do all of the work, but the women, I think, feel the greatest relief. The men
Ah,
feel a great deal of relief as well, but theirs is more cognitive. It's like, oh wow, that is amazing that I now understand, right? But for women who are feeling like despondent or despair, even in their relationship
Yeah.
with somebody who has this neurotype, there's a great relief for them.
Wow. I just keep thinking about how many people are probably in relationships right now struggling, and they don't even know where to start, what's going on, and they get lost, and many of them unfortunately don't continue because of it. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And I've seen role reversal too, where it's a woman who has this neurotype, and the man doesn't know how to relate to her. So, and there's so much
Wow.
distinction between how men and women communicate that gets mixed in there too. But then if you
Yeah.
have that and you have this neurotype, it's like bigger. It's more
Wow.
to go through.
That can be a lot. Okay, so for us who are not in your field, of course, can you tell us what is neurotype? Can you break that down for us? Like, how, I'm thinking, like, how many are there? Like, how does it work? Can you tell us a little bit?
So, if you look through brain typing, there are so many different forms of brain types out there, and people who do different analysis and have their own frameworks. Like, I trained under Dr. Daniel Amen of the Amen Clinics, and he has his own that are distinct to him. For mine, there's actually quite a few that I've identified in my own framework, and it's just me seeing patterns basically in people and naming them, right? So a neurotype is it's like a brain type, but it's more like brain and behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
That a person has. And based on thinking, based on feeling. And so when I think about, how people have been classified throughout, especially the last, 50 years or so. And sometimes they have a classification that's not necessarily a neuro or a brain type. Like you think about the word empath. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a type of person based on how much they feel. And
Uh-huh.
probably a lot of your listeners can relate to the empath, right? When that word came out, it was a magical definition of a group of people that didn't know that there were others like them, that it existed. And
Yeah.
when they realized, hey, there's others like me, and there's a reason why I am as I am, they could accept themselves and they could find community so that they didn't feel alone anymore. And I think that probably saved lives because
Wow.
they had people, they had support. Now, when I think about the deep thinkers of the world, right? Not just the deep feelers like the empaths,
Uh-huh.
who are our tribe? Like who is our community? We don't have a name. And so I've coined that. That's why I say I'm a thought leader. I've coined the name neurocognipath. So not empath, but cognipath. We are the people who think deeply versus feel deeply. And so now sometimes when I say this to people, they go, wait a minute, I think I'm both. What happens if I'm both?
Yeah.
And I say, and probably like you'll relate to this, Jessica, like you are the all. You are the omnipath. So I say congratulations because you have more thoughts and more feelings than probably everybody else around you. Right. And so I know that's something that you want to explore more in future episodes about the omnipath. So it's a matter of skill that we all need to deal with thoughts and emotions. And then if we have more thoughts and emotions, we need unique and better skills to deal with them, basically.
That's beautiful, because then you come from a point where you're understanding yourself, and then you're also understanding that you're not alone. So it's two things: is getting to know who you are truly, and also feel accepted, because where probably growing up you were not, maybe you were told you shouldn't be this way or you should be this way, right? That everybody's exposed to that, and then we're trying to
Yes.
change who we truly are to fit into those frames, and those expectations and culture and behaviors, but then it's against our grain, it's against who we are. So it's an undoing process now, right? And then at the same time of acceptance, and that must be, like you said, saving lives. I never even thought about it that far. That's incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's my mission, is to alleviate suffering and to save lives. And so with this neurotype, people can really like spiral out of control in their heads, right? When you think about it, if you have more thoughts and more feelings than the average person, aren't you, more likely to be overwhelmed by that, right? And then seek refuge and escapism, whether that's addiction or just kind of trying to leave the planet because you don't know how to deal with your internal environment, right?
Wow. That was said very clearly. Now, explain to us, me and our listeners, what is the difference between that neuropath and a critical thinker?
So I use
Because
the
it
term
sounds to
critical.
me, yeah, it sounds to me a little bit like that they're more of a thinker. So, what's the difference between that neuropath and a critical thinker?
Okay, yeah. So you've probably heard me use that term quite a bit. And when I first was talking, because I've been in practice for over 15 years, so when I first was trying to identify this neurotype, I called us critical thinkers, right? Because that's the closest thing that I could think of that would describe us. But a simple critical thinker is a person who analyzes, who thinks, and who, will look at all the different, pros and cons of things. They'll also be willing to change their mind if they're given new evidence that the way that they're thinking is perhaps inaccurate. So they're really good at thinking, right? But maybe they're not a cognipath or an omnipath. Maybe they're not metacognitive as much as somebody who thinks deeply. So you can think a lot and you can think analytically, but how deep do you go? Like the angst over injustice, for example. So a critical thinker may or may not have that, but a cognipath and an omnipath does. So there's kind of the difference just between thinking and then the depth of the person.
Wow, that's amazing. And how, at what point do you start seeing which type your client is? Like, do you have something that they have to answer, or how long does it take for you to, see where they fit?
Oh, I know that pretty quickly from a conversation. And yes, there's
Wow.
ask them, right? And I'm actually working on some assessments for the different neurotypes, but I can pick that up pretty quickly in even general conversation. If a person is a critical thinker or a cognipath or an omnipath, usually, a person will identify themselves very quickly. Even the people who are listening to this right now will probably have a pretty good idea of who they are.
Okay. So if they're pretty sure about who they are based on, of course, their life experience, and now, of course, learning all of your experience here that you're sharing, how can somebody know that they are at the point where they have become the master of their mind?
Mm. They have peace. They have peace of mind. They're not spiraling out of
Oh,
control. They can sleep, right? They can function. Their relationships are balanced. They know how to implement boundaries, all of that. But I did create an assessment and I call it the CMQ. So that's cognitive mastery quotient. And this is different than, IQ or EQ or SQ, right? So your emotional or social quotient. This kind of sits upstream of all those things, especially for somebody who's very, in their mind, right? Very head heavy or a thinker. They need to learn how to control their thoughts generally before they can control their emotions. So it's upstream of EQ. And this assessment is on my website. It's free. They can take and see how are they doing with basically becoming the master of their own mind.
oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for making that available. At the end of the episode, we're definitely going to share all that information about how you can actually access that and much more with Dr. Blythe. My next question is now the one that I said I was going to ask earlier, which has to do a little bit more about your personal experience in your life.
Sure.
How did your journey start, and how did it get you to where you are now on choosing this career?
Well, I was so young. Actually, I realized from a very young age that I thought more than other people, and like, why do you have to question so much? And I didn't have an answer to that, right? And by the time I was around 15 years old, being in my mind felt like a prison. Like I
Wow.
was different than a lot of the other people around me. There was a group of people, in high school that were kind of like me. They were like, the nerds in the library type of people. And, we would form together for solace and talk about why the world was as it was, but then why wasn't everybody else like me? Why did they care more about the type of sneakers they wore than they did about, the big questions of world hunger and everything else that was happening? And so I got to a point within my mind, it was so tangled with all these questions and not knowing what to do with my thoughts and my emotions, that I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to make it to grade 10. Like, how am I going to function? How am I going to make it? If I feel this bad right now, how am I going to get through life? And I thought, I've got to do something to control my mind. Like, I didn't even know if that was possible, right? And I used to say, my mind is a dangerous neighborhood, and I dare not walk it alone. I'm a poetic 15-year-old, right? So I used to say that.
Like at that age, that's incredible.
And then, so I thought, oh yeah. And in my angst, my teenage angst, right, as a deep thinker, I had the thought one day after that, wait a minute, if my mind is a dangerous neighborhood, then it's my neighborhood. Like, I'm not just passing through here. Like, I live here. But more than that, I own it. So that makes me the mayor. Like, holy, like, I am the mayor of my own mind, and I am doing a bad job. Right? Like, if this neighborhood is dangerous, then why am I allowing that? Right? I need to step up. I have the authority, and I have the responsibility to change things.
Wow.
So that's where it began.
So that is absolutely incredible. And the description and how you saw it, it just, and it turned you almost like very early in life accountable for your own, like you took that and you took it for yourself, took charge over it. That's absolutely amazing. Most people spend their entire life trying to be accountable, and they have a hard time. You know what I'm saying? That's amazing. Yeah. Now tell us, why did you say dangerous neighborhood? Why is it dangerous?
Right. It was dangerous because it was a place that didn't feel safe. It didn't feel comfortable, and I didn't want to live in it. And how do you run away from yourself? Right? Wherever you go, there you are. So being in that neighborhood where everything was like dark and jumbled and I couldn't make sense of it felt so overwhelming that it's like, how can you make good choices in life when you feel that overwhelmed? Like you can't. It was dangerous for my future. It was like impacting me in such negative ways. And I knew nobody was coming to save me. I knew that nobody could. Like, who could get into my mind and fix that? Right? It was inside of me. I had to do it.
That is amazing. That is incredible. So if somebody, right, is listening, anybody who's listening to this right now, they might be thinking like, am I the mayor of my mind? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not sure, or maybe they're thinking, how can I be the mayor of my neighborhood, of my mind? What would you say?
The first thing you need to do is realize it's your neighborhood. Your mind is your neighborhood. You own it. You live there. And, the position is there to be taken up. So either you claim ownership and you realize that you are in charge and that you can create rules and boundaries, and you can put up streetlights in your neighborhood so that you can actually see what's happening. That means questioning the thoughts that are there and like analyzing that and say, okay, do I want to keep this? What am I going to do with this? And then absolutely deciding what your neighborhood is going to look like. So I used to ask myself two questions. Basically, is it honest and is it helpful, this thought? I'd pinpoint a thought. I'd be like, oh, do I actually think that? Okay, yeah, I guess I think that. Is that truthful? Like, is it honest with me? No, that's not really an honest thought. That's not really true. And it's a terrible thought, right? And then it's like, it's not helpful. It's not what I want in my life. And then I began to go deeper, right? So even deeper with that analogy of, in order for me to keep a thought, I would ask 3 questions. So
Okay.
it was, does this thought deserve residency? If I'm the mayor and in this town, I have all authority. I am the judge. I am everything in this town, right? So would I want that at my kitchen table, being my neighbor, having tea with me, where it's going to talk poorly to me and try and usurp my power, right? Is that okay? And then the second one would be, is this going in the right direction? Is this taking me to like the good parts of my town, the well-lit gardens where I'm going to enjoy myself, or down back alleys where I'm going to get stabbed? Right? What direction is this thought taking me in? And then finally, who's in charge? Like, is it trying to take away my authority? Like, if it's so powerful that it's in charge and I'm not, then it's not just a resident of the neighborhood, it's now an unelected official, and it needs to be removed. And so that's what I did. I listened to all the voices in my town, all the thoughts that I had, but I didn't give them all equal power. I didn't give them all authority or all a chance to vote against me, right? So residency
Wow.
is a privilege. And so when thoughts tried to return, I could kick them out, they try and return, same questions apply, right? And so over time, you end up with a much more peaceful neighborhood, one that you actually want to live in, right? Because that's your mind. It's what you have that's going to direct you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That is amazing. Those questions, you need to write this down, because this is something that you can, because throughout life you're learning, you're being exposed to different things, different cultures, and you're sometimes just assimilating or even creating certain perceptions that might become a belief, and you need to go through that filter. You need to make sure that that's something that is welcoming and part of who you want to be, and allow inside your mind. That is such a beautiful way, and an easy tool. So after you did these questions to yourself, you
Mhm.
or what was the next thing? Was it the willingness to let go of that belief, and that's how you got rid of the bad uh, tenant, or however you want to call it? Was that the next step?
Well, the thing is, you have to be willing to question what's happening in your mind and realize that you have the authority to change that thought. So as soon as you kick something out, something else will try and arrive and fill up that vacancy, usually the same kind of trouble that you just escorted out. So you
Mm.
have to make sure that you decide, what is my new thought going to be? So, I have this thought that, I'll never make it with this or whatever, right? I'm not good enough with this, or that person hates me. Okay, is that really true, right? Is that being honest with me? Is that what I want to have for the rest of my life? I'm not good enough. Is that sitting at my kitchen table having tea with me? I don't think so. And so it's like, okay. And if it's become really powerful, it's like, this needs to go now. Well,
Yeah.
what can I replace that with? What do I want to believe? And what is actually more in alignment with reality? Right? So then you replace it with a good thought. And every time that old thought keeps trying to come back in, it's like, you know what? I recognize this. I know who you are. You're an old neighbor. You're an old thought. And sorry, but you don't belong here anymore. And actually, the person who's living now in your house is a much nicer neighbor. And I trust
Wow.
them more.
I love that. So basically, you have to replace it so there's no gaps. That's beautiful. That makes perfect sense, and it's easy for people to resonate. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
You currently work with individuals and groups, and in different dynamics. But before we have our listeners be able to connect with you in that level, tell us a little bit about what's coming next for you. What is Dr. Blythe up to in the near future?
Right. I'm expanding the Thinker's Revolution. I'm doing public speaking and writing, and so I've written a number of articles, and I'm helping founders, a lot of founders, those with brilliant brains and lots of responsibility or authority or influence, to manage their brains, because there's people who have a wide influence in the world, and they need to control their minds. They need to have an idea of who they are. And then I believe that that ripple effect will go out, right? So bringing more language around these neurotypes and creating a community for people so that they realize that they're not alone. And then, of course, you and I are collaborating on the career breakthrough playbook, right?
Yes.
I know that you're talking about stress and the things that you know well about, and I'm exploring SQ and the age of AI, translating brain types. So that's kind of fascinating. I'm also authoring in another book that's forwarded by Lisa Nichols, and it's all about being the mayor of your mind, that particular chapter too. So lots of good stuff on the horizon, Jessica.
Beautiful, beautiful. So how can our listeners now reach out to you, follow you, see what you're up to as you bring of all of this amazing gems that you're sharing with us now, and so much more? How can they reach you?
Well, they can find me on my website, drcleverly.com. They can email me. That's the very best way, info@drcleverly.com. They can follow me on social media. I'm on most of the platforms, Blythe Cleverly, or Fork in the Road. That is the name of my business. So they can find me Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and of course my website and the email.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. And before we wrap up, what is one maybe first step or second step that this neural type would benefit from after they finish watching the episode, they turn it off, they walk away, go back to their daily routine? What is the one thing that you would like to leave them with?
This neurotype will remember the things that we've discussed because they have that type of brain. They'll continue to think about it. And, it's one of those things that I'm not saying it's easy, super easy, like just like that, you're in control of your mind. But in life, we choose our hard. And this is a whole lot easier to control your mind than to just let it run amok, right? And the thing I want them to know is that, your neighborhood's not a bad place. It was never a bad place. It was just mismanaged. And so the Thinker's Revolution is about becoming self-governed, right? Being the mayor of your mind. And that's what my hope is for people, that they realize it's possible and that they have a right, they have the authority and the responsibility to do it.
That's like taking a whole weight out of somebody's that somebody might be taking. You know what I'm saying? We don't realize sometimes we're dragging all of this weight, and what you're saying now is just literally a possibility of letting all of that go, and that's amazing. Thank you so much for making such a big difference, and even coming to the point, like you said, which is saving lives, which is part of your mission. That's absolutely beautiful. I am thrilled to have you here today. This is a privilege that our paths crossed, and I'm very happy that we have something else in line coming soon in this season with you, and we're going to talk about that next. And for now, I want to just say thank you so much. It was a privilege. Make sure that if you're watching this show that you're following Dr. Blythe on her Facebook page, on her LinkedIn, on her social media, and especially her website. And she also mentioned in the beginning of the episode that she has a free assessment for you to do that. Oh man, I'm going to do that as soon as we finish this episode. I can't wait. I love to learn about self, and I love to help people to advocate for themselves, is to really take that charge, to take and be accountable for themselves so they can be completely empowered with their mind. So thank you so much. This show is sponsored by Purium, which is a ultimate life transformation company that can help you reset, cleanse, and bring deep nutrition to your cells, and also Forever Living, the best aloe vera juice in the world. And this show is brought by iambeastnetwork. This is Jessica Javens Talk, and I am Jessica Javens. Thank you for watching.
Baby, tell me you like me. Baby, girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Females made you just to trick me, trick me, trick me, trick me. 'Cause baby girl, you are so easy, baby.